All right, welcome to this explainer on topic 38 for the EOI Otagon competitive exams. Today, we're diving into a real academic masterclass on the internal complexity of the English noun phrase. We're going to dissect its structure, its functions, and its morphological underpinnings to get you completely prepared for the highest levels of grammatical analysis. Let's jump right into this rigorous linguistic journey.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The head of the noun phrase. 2. Countability. 3. Proper nouns and pronouns. 4. Determiners. 5. Modification. And 6. Pedagogical implications for the EOI.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the head of the noun phrase.
So what exactly is the noun phrase, or the NP? Well, it's a fundamental syntactic constituent, and it's not just a single word. It's this whole hierarchical architecture with serious internal complexity, completely organized around a nominal head. For your advanced learners, especially at that C2 level, getting this functional versatility is absolutely crucial. The NP is literally the foundational building block of English sentence structure. It dictates agreement, it governs dependencies, and it operates so fluidly as a subject, direct object, indirect object, or complement within the broader clause. But remember, the whole shebang relies entirely on that core nominal head.
Think about the noun as the absolute nucleus. Semantically, it categorizes everything around us, essentially dividing our whole lexicon into the physical and the immaterial. We distinguish concrete entities, people and tangible objects, from abstract concepts, which are those intangible thoughts or interpersonal relationships. We also categorize qualities and phenomena. This separates an inherent characteristic like beauty from a physical, atmospheric event like thunder. And of course, we classify actions and emotions, capturing concepts like the process of reading or the psychological state of laughter. Our lexicon meticulously mirrors the human experience through these semantic divides.
Now, how does English constantly build out these nominal heads? Well, the lexicon is endlessly expanding through some very specific morphological word formation processes. We rely heavily on class-changing suffixation. That's taking a base verb like play to derive the noun player, or an adjective like happy to create happiness. We also use class-preserving affixation. Think of morphing wife into ex-wife. The semantic meaning shifts, sure, but the syntactic category stays exactly the same. Then we have conversion, sometimes called zero derivation. This is where a verb like catch gets adopted syntactically as a noun, a catch, without a single morphological alteration to the root. And finally, compounding. This fuses two totally independent lexical bases, like rain and fall, into an entirely new unified head, rainfall.
Moving right along to Section 2, countability and boundedness. Listen, countability is so much more than a simple grammar rule. It's actually a cognitive contrast. It's less about the physical makeup of an object itself and way more about how human perception dictates the grammar. We contrast discrete individual entities, our count nouns, with indivisible masses, the non-count nouns. If we cognitively perceive something as a distinct, separable unit, we count it and we assign it plural morphology. But if we perceive it as this undifferentiated, homogeneous mass, like water or furniture, the grammar restricts it. It completely shuts down pluralization and the indefinite article.
To really nail this for your exams, you've got to throw that old binary thinking right out the window. We're going to use R. Huddleston's rigorous framework here. He argues that countability is actually a spectrum made up of 5 distinct degrees. Let's climb the steps. Degree I is fully mass, like furniture, which strictly rejects all count markers. Degree 2 has limited compatibility. Think of knowledge. You can't pluralize it, but it occasionally takes an indefinite article, right? Like a thirst for knowledge. Degree 3 shows moderate compatibility, representing aggregate nouns like cattle that take plural verbs even though they lack plural morphology. Degree 4 is high compatibility, covering collective nouns like police that consistently behave as plurals. And finally, degree V, fully count. These are your standard nouns like book that happily accept all singular and plural syntactical markers. This whole continuum proves countability is fluid and highly nuanced.
And because it's a fluid spectrum, we run into this brilliant concept, reclassification boundedness. See, countability just describes the semantic potential of a noun, but boundedness, that's the actualization of it in syntax. Context dynamically shifts a noun's operational boundaries. A strict mass noun like cake can be instantly reclassified to denote an individual, bounded unit. I baked a cake. But conversely, a count noun can be completely stripped of its boundaries for an unbounded mass interpretation. You shouldn't have eaten so much cake. It's the contextual intent of the speaker that literally forces the grammar to bend. All right, Section 3, Proper Nouns and Pronouns.
Let's clear up something that constantly trips up advanced learners when dealing with specific, unique entities. We have to contrast a proper noun with a proper name. A proper noun is just a single, unanalyzable word acting entirely alone as a head, like John or London. A proper name, however, is a complex syntactic structure. It's a full phrase containing internal elements like determiners or prepositional phrases, but it acts as a singular, specific designation, like the University of Oxford. Recognizing this structural distinction is a real game changer for your grammatical precision.
Now, what happens when we skip the full nominal group entirely? We bring in pronominal heads to substitute for them. We use personal pronouns, which depend completely on indirect reference to a previously established antecedent to get their meaning. We've got indefinite compound pronouns, like everybody or nothing, and these act independently without needing antecedents at all. And then we have demonstrative pronouns: this, that, these, those. What is absolutely crucial for your C2 students to grasp is how these demonstratives navigate discourse cohesion. They can point backward in the text, which is anaphoric reference, or they can point forward to anticipate upcoming information, which is cataphoric reference. Shifting gears a bit, let's look at Section 4, the determinative element.
So, rather than looking at the core head, let's look at how we restrict it. The determination system is this incredibly rigid, structured hierarchy. It restricts the nominal head through partition, deixis, and quantity, and it operates in a strict, unyielding sequence. First up, predeterminers. This includes universal quantifiers like all or both, and multipliers like twice. Next in line are the central determiners. These are your mutually exclusive core articles and possessives that establish definite or indefinite reference. Finally, we have postdeterminers. These sit right in that space just before any adjectives start, and they include ordinal numerals like first, cardinal numerals like 3, and specific quantifiers like many. This fixed, left-to-right ordering is an inflexible hallmark of English syntax.
While we're analyzing these structures, there's a massive theoretical distinction you need to hit home with your students: reference versus substitution. Reference is a semantic relation. It reaches right out of the text, connecting the language directly to a real-world entity. It bridges linguistics with external reality. Substitution, though, that's purely a lexicogrammatical relation between linguistic items inside the text itself. It's simply language replacing language to maintain cohesive discourse without sounding totally repetitive.
This brings us to a profound insight from renowned linguists Halliday and Sinclair. They argue that the ultimate form of substitution is ellipsis, which they meticulously term substitution by zero. Think about that. Even when a nominal head is entirely omitted from the surface structure just to avoid redundancy, it is still structurally and syntactically understood from the surrounding context. The silence itself holds tremendous grammatical weight. It serves as an invisible yet fully functional placeholder in the clause.
Which leads us nicely into Section 5, modification in the noun phrase. So, how do we add descriptive texture here? When you stack multiple premodifiers onto a noun, English forces them into a very rigid sequence governed by Quirk et al.'s premodification zones. The underlying logic is actually pretty cool. Adjectives representing the most intrinsic, permanent properties sit closest to the head noun. It flows chronologically left to right. First, the precentral zone houses peripheral intensifiers. Then, the central zone allows for subjective evaluations and size. Next, the postcentral zone captures objective, intrinsic properties like color or participles. And finally, right before the head, the prehead zone features highly restricted categorizations like nationality or denominal nouns. It is a precise, logical flow of modification that your advanced learners really need to study explicitly.
Now, if pre-modifiers express intrinsic permanent features, post-modifiers are usually dealing with extrinsic features or temporary states. And we've got a few key syntactic types to work with. Prepositional phrases are the big ones. Statistically, they are the most frequent form of post-head expansion. We also use relative clauses. These can be restrictive to definitively identify the noun or non-restrictive just to add some supplementary detail. Then there's apposition, which we use when two noun phrases sit side by side sharing the exact same reference. And finally, non-finite clauses. These layer in complex, condensed action directly following the head using ing, ed, or infinitive forms.
Finally, let's bridge the gap between theory and practice. Section 6, Pedagogical Implications for the EOI.
This begs the ultimate, pivotal question for your exams. How on earth do we teach this immense internal syntactic complexity to C2 level students? Because that is your mandate as a future teacher in Aragon. You have to translate this dense structural theory into actionable pedagogy for advanced learners who are desperately trying to master a formal academic register.
the absolute game changer for unlocking C2 academic writing is nominalization. It's basically a process of grammatical metaphor. You are converting active verbal processes into these complex, static noun phrases. So instead of a structurally simple sentence like, the researchers discovered the cure, you push your C2 student to write, the discovery of the cure by the researchers. By packing the action and the agents into a single, dense, nominal structure, we achieve significantly higher information density. It creates a highly objective, authoritative academic register.
Look, at the end of the day, the noun phrase isn't just some dusty grammatical category. It is literally the ultimate architecture of advanced human communication. By understanding the noun as the syntactic head, the cognitive nuances of boundedness, those strict sequences of determination, and the layered zones of modification, you are handing your students the blueprint to the English language. So, as you prepare to step into that EOI classroom, I want you to ask yourself, if the noun phrase is the fundamental architecture of complex thought, how are you going to help your students build their own minds tomorrow?